Hello everyone, this is a different type of vlog. I'm going to give you a beginner's guide to planning Florida and going to Florida. Some of the personal things that we do when we go on holiday and some of my experiences which hopefully will help you plan your Florida vacation. So, a bit about myself then for Florida. I've been going there since I was 19. Which is nearly 20 years ago, which is quite scary. I first went there with my parents back in, I think it was 96, something like that. That was when Universal was Universal in terms of the studios, so you had like the backlot tours, King Kong ride, Jaws, Back to the Future. Before it all turned into like the Harry Potter studios, which is what we call it now. And then Disney World itself, it just had the 3 parks, and they were just building Animal Kingdom the first time I went. So when we went the year later, Animal Kingdom had just opened. So I went with my parents a couple of times, and then there was a big gap before I went again, when I met Lucy. That was our first holiday away when we went to Florida, and we've been 8 times since, and we even had our honeymoon there. And we've been all over Florida, from Miami all the way through to the Keys, to Naples, and all the way up to Orlando itself. So we think I've got a decent experience to be able to do something like this to help people plan for their holidays. So let's get into it. I'm going to try and do these over a few vlogs, so I'm not going to ramble on for hours and hours. This one, which we'll call episode 1, the beginner's guide, I'm going to just talk about planning and some of the questions that a lot of first timers do ask. If you go on a lot of the forums on Facebook, these are the kind of common questions that people do ask. And I've looked on YouTube myself, and I can't really see any videos like this. It's more of people's past trips, experiences, or vlogging when they're on holiday, which is what I do as well. So planning is key. You can go on a whim if you're like that, but I think to make the most out of a Florida holiday, you have to plan it. And I think before you go, if like ourselves we go every 2 years, it's part of the fun. It's taken me nearly 8 years to incorporate Lucy into this fun, as she wasn't really part of the planning bit, but she enjoys that now as much as me. And I won't go through this in detail now, but this is the kind of thing that I do. Put it all on a little spreadsheet. And the real anal part of me, I have photos as well, to make it a little bit more quick look, and it's got in the Word as well. But I'll go through that in more detail, and I'll show you how to do it. There's a lot of like spreadsheets that you can get out there for planning tools. You can get them off the Disney website, and they send you a little book out. It's got little planning tips in there, which we've had. That's really good if you order that off the Disney website, because it's got all the park maps in it as well, so it gives you an idea of what's in the parks, the rides and things. So that is good. I think as well you can order, I don't think they send a book out, but they do send a DVD out of the parks for Universal. So do go on the websites for their parks, because you can get, I know SeaWorld do one which shows Busch Gardens and things, so you can order them online. Also, if you go to the Visit Orlando website, you can order a book from there, and that tells you not just about the theme parks, they tell you about the wider area as well, like Daytona, Tampa, downtown Orlando itself. So that's a good guidebook you can get. We've recently picked up this book as well. It's the Brit's Guide to Orlando. It was $15.99, but we got it off Amazon, but it was on sale. But it's a good guide. It gives everything that you need to know in there, from your car parks, sorry, not your car parks, your car hire to all your theme parks. So that's a good look at. One of the questions that I see a lot, and one that we've been asked a few times, is how old do your kids have to be to enjoy Florida? Before we had children, I always said that I'd never take a child younger than 5 because he wouldn't remember it or he wouldn't enjoy it. And then we had Elliot, and then we took him when he was 18 months. He loved it. Yeah, he's in a different country and the travel can be a bit too much, but the flight wasn't that bad. He slept most of the way there, and on the way back it was a night flight, and once he dropped off he was fine. We've had Owen last year and we took him when he was 5 months. It was harder work with the two than when we had Elliot, but they still loved it the same. And yeah, they're not going to remember it, but we've got memories that we can show them back because I've vlogged all of my trips, so they'll remember it that way. So when people ask me how long do your kids have to be, it's entirely up to you. It really is entirely up to you. As a family, what you think is right for your kids. There's no age constraint, and obviously with park tickets and things, you don't have to pay for them to the age of 3. So you will save money that way. You don't really have to pay for them. One of the other questions that I see bandied around a lot is how expensive is it? How do people afford to go every year? Florida is one of those holidays where you can make it as expensive as you want to or as cheap as you want to. Obviously if you're staying at a Disney resort, you're looking at the high end. They've got the moderate hotels and your expensive hotels, but even their moderate ones are their cheapest ones are more expensive than staying on International Drive, or if you went as a big group in a villa. So, you could spend $3,000. I mean, we've been to Florida for $2,000 as just a couple. Yes, it was going back a while, but you could still do just over that if you wanted to for 2 weeks, including your car hire as well. There's ways of making it cheaper by cutting out your car hire, just go to one theme park instead of all the theme parks, doing no theme parks and just having a beach holiday. There's loads of different ways you can make Florida as cheap or as expensive as you want. But as I say, I'm going to do these vlogs over a few episodes, so I'll go into more detail about your accommodation and park tickets and stuff in a later one. So going on to cheap or as expensive as you want is the same with spending money as well. I know a lot of people don't do it, but there is a cap with your spending. You can't buy more than £390 worth of goods. If you do, you have to declare it. So if you buy an iPad, you must declare that when you go through customs, etc. Whether people do it or not, that's your choice, but you are supposed to declare those things. So when you're taking £4 or £5 worth of spending money just to buy things, you need to be careful. I've seen people in the airport frantically swapping things around in suitcases because they're way over their baggage allowance, and they have to pay an extra £50 per kilo that they've gone over. So it's all about that as well. Obviously you're going over there to treat yourself, but also be in mind of what you do buy and that you don't go over the top. So spending money, for example, last year for a family of 4, Owen was too young in terms of eating, but Elliot eats like a teenager even though he's only 3. And we took $3,000 with us and we came back with money, and that was with buying stuff as well. Elliot, I think, come back with the Lego store. He had that much Lego. One thing I do find that is expensive out there now is if you wanted to have a drink. If you go out for a drink, if you just went out for a meal, you have a dessert and soft drinks, because soft drinks obviously are refillable. You can look for anything from $40 to $100 depending on what type of restaurant you're eating in. If you throw alcohol on top of that, it's another $50. that you're adding on there. And you have to bear in mind as well, the more your price goes up for your dinner, the more you have to tip. And tipping is between 12 and 17.5%, depending on what service you think you've had. So the final thing that I'll talk about on this vlog is about the size of Florida. People don't really grasp on how big it is. To give you some kind of scale, Disney World itself is bigger than Greater Manchester. It's got its own freeway system that runs through all the parks that connect it. For example, when you get to Magic Kingdom, you park your car, you get out your car, you get on a tram. The tram then takes you to the Disney Transport Centre, where then you have to get a monorail or a boat to the actual park itself. That's how big it is. And most of the parks as well are always busy, so unless you get there for rope drop, which is what they call for when the park first opens, you're going to be at the back of the car parks. So all car parks as well have trams that take you to the gate, but it is difficult to walk from place to place, and that's just Disney World itself. Another area which is a favourite of ours is International Drive. From end to end, it's a long road, it's around 11 miles. You've got Universal Studios on one end and SeaWorld on the other end, and at the same time you've got the two outlet malls as well at either end. Obviously you can walk it if you wanted to, but it's, as I say, it's 11 miles end to end. That is probably the easiest place where you can stay, where you can walk to different restaurants and things if you wanted to. So what I'm going to end on is you also need to think about when you go to Florida is there's more to Florida than Disney World and theme parks. There's lots of other things you can do, even as a first timer. There's places like Gatorland, Kennedy Space Center. If you're into your space and your rockets and stuff, they've got actual used rockets there, which is really interesting. You've got the beaches of Clearwater, St. Pete's, Tampa, Daytona, Miami Beach even, or even the Keys. And then you've got your sporting events like the baseball, NFL, soccer, basketball, and even ice hockey, if that floats your boat. And they've got some wicked festivals there as well, which I want to go to one day, which is around at the April time. They used to be quite little with smaller bands, but this year I think the Foo Fighters are playing, Ozzy Osbourne, for example. The same sort of festivals that you have here, but you'll get the sun as well if you decide to do that. So there are lots of different things that we can go through. This is just giving you an insight of planning for Florida, so we'll get into more detail in the next one where we'll just focus on one thing. So next week I'll try and do them weekly, if not I'll do them bi-weekly, depending on like work commitments and things. We'll go through all the parks, tickets and planning actually for them, and I'll show you through the planner as well. So if you like it, please comment. If you've got any questions as well, I can put into different episodes, and subscribe, which is always good. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.